Hello, you're listening or watching to this episode of Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio, and today I'm joined by frequent guest of the show, Victor. How are you today, Victor?
I am doing well. How are you, Andrew?
I am great. I'm excited to sit down and chat about some things, uh, to talk about etiquette, but we'll get there in just a second because people are probably wondering, what is that? Why do we do that? What? I don't get it. We'll talk about it. Just a second. Hang on. I want to make sure that maybe you're a new listener, and if you are, I want to make sure that you go to Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio if you want to find out more about the show. Find out about all of the over 1,000 episodes that we have available. At that website, you will find transcripts, you'll find show notes, you'll find photos. You'll also find a button at the top that says subscribe. That'll bring you to our exclusive newsletter that you can subscribe to. Not only will you get a free book, but you'll also get notified of every episode as it comes out, so you don't miss any. It'll be just right in your email there, waiting for you, like a little wrapped present every episode. There's a button there to find out about our sponsors. So we would appreciate if you can go there and take a look at the sponsors that we have. One of the partners that we have, I know, Victor, you deal with quite a bit, which is Martialytics. You want to talk about them really quick?
Yeah, Martialytics is a dojo. Sorry, it's a gym management software, but specifically designed for martial arts schools. And I have worked in many different fitness centers using many different gym software management systems, and Martialytics is the one that knows what I need before I know what I need, and is very specific to running a martial arts studio. It streamlines my billing, it streamlines my communication, it streamlines almost everything clerically that I need to do. And I think the best part is that they're constantly innovating. There have been multiple times where I've logged in at the start of class and noticed a new feature that wasn't there the previous day that I logged in there. So I can't imagine running our school without it, because I've
Awesome.
become so reliant on how it makes my life easier so I can just focus on my students and teaching.
Excellent. And for anyone listening that's interested, please go to whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. And at the top, there's a button that says partners. So we appreciate you. You can take a look there. And I know that they're giving an extra, I think, is it 2 months subscription?
Yeah, 60 days.
Yeah. So there you go. Try it for free. Now, this podcast is one small thing that we do. We also do lots. I say small thing. This is a pretty big podcast, but it's one small part of what Whistlekick does. You can go to whistlekick.com to find out information on everything else that we do, whether it's training programs or when maybe you want to purchase a book or some apparel, or attend any of the events that we host throughout the country. All of that stuff can be found at whistlekick.com. Okay, so Victor, we are going to do an episode on etiquette, and I got this idea from actually Jeremy had done an episode called Martial Arts Etiquette back in 2016, like 9 years ago. And my thought was, Jeremy is Jeremy. Victor, are you Jeremy?
I am not.
And guess what? I'm not Jeremy either. So I suspect we're going to have a slightly different thoughts on etiquette within the martial arts. And then you had this idea of, why do we do that? Like, let's look at some of these etiquette things that we do in martial arts. Now, not all schools are going to do all of these things. And some of the etiquette we talk about might not relate to your school if you're listening. But you and I, Victor, have certainly different training backgrounds. Mine is mostly all Japanese or Okinawan karate. And I know that you have a different wrong word. You come at this from a different angle, having done different styles. So I thought that this would be a fun episode to kind of talk about some of the etiquette things that we see often in martial arts schools.
Yeah, no, for sure. And right before we got on and started recording, I was even alluding to this in the sense that I come, because of my upbringing, not so much in the martial arts community, but, just generically coming from a very conservative religious background. My life was filled with so many things that this is just the way that you do them. But then when you go and talk to other people who aren't from that same background, they do things a little differently. And it just made me realize, and I think this really will resonate true with American martial arts studios, is the whole fact that most of the things that we're doing come from cultures that the people who are perpetrating them have never actually experienced firsthand on their own. Be it because those cultural norms no longer exist because they are history now, or because they were taught to, how did martial arts come to America? Normally, the usual story is a soldier was stationed overseas and needed something to do, found a local gym, tried to overcome a language barrier, probably didn't really know the language as well as he should have, but made it work, learned what he learned, came back to America and said, hey, this thing was fun, and then just started running classes the ways that they were run when he was overseas without fully understanding the cultural significance of anything, but it's just, that's the quote unquote way it's supposed to be. And I have always found that fascinating, even in the beginning of this. Like, I gave a little salute. Like, one day, I've always, that's just military in my family. That's just always how I've said hello. But like, I once asked myself, I was like, why do we salute? Like, why is that? Well, when knights in Europe were passing each other, wearing full armor, they would lift their visor to show their eyes, to show that they were calm. But how many people who salute know that this is a lifting of the visor, so that you would show intention? It's fascinating to me just to think about things like this.
Yeah. So that's what, people listening, watching, that's what we're kind of going to discuss some of these things, and some of it we may not get into the why, because honestly, Victor and I might not know why, but we're definitely going to talk about some etiquette things. So, the first one that comes to mind for me, in most, though not all schools, is taking your shoes off when you arrive at the school, right? You're going to step on the training floor, your shoes come off. I think that one is fairly easy to understand. Why do we do that? Most of the time yes, culturally, it comes from Japan and Okinawa and China, where they often take their shoes off when they're indoors. But also, we don't want dog poop on the floor, right? I'm walking around outside in my shoes.
For sure. And this one actually makes the most universal cultural sense, I think, because especially when you're coming from societies where, especially in lower income households or simpler lifestyles, where you walk on into someone's room is also where they sit on the floor to eat their food, which is also where they lay on the floor to sleep, right? And so now you've got stinky dirt, all of the muck from travel on your shoes, traipsing across where you're about to lay your head. And conversely, again, don't differs from style to style, but our style, even in the karate part of things, even, jujitsu aside, we spend a lot of time with our face on the floor. Our karate has a lot of throws. We take a lot of people down. I've been in this situation, not in any of the schools that I have trained in consistently, and certainly not in our schools, but I have been in the situation where I have been thrown and had my face pinned to the ground while working technique. And I've opened my eyes to see some sort of stained liquid on the ground that should not be near me, nor would I want it near anyone else's face. So it is a matter of cleanliness that I think is culturally universal. I mean, we're about to do rolls. We're about to sit on this floor. We spend a lot of time exposed to the mat. And even though you clean it regularly, I don't want my students walking across a parking lot with God knows what in it, motor oils and all that, and then taking those shoes immediately onto my mats.
Exactly.
It also breaks the floor down more, right? Asphalt is different than a floor even a wooden floor, right? There's a reason why parking lots aren't made of wood. They're made of asphalt because they're designed to hold up more. And so for
Yeah.
the longevity, for the cleanliness of things, that's an easy why that I think is universal throughout the arts, except in a lot of the kung fu that I've done where we are training outside, so we don't go barefoot.
Exactly.
My
There, I
Sifu,
mean, and like I said, there's
when
always exceptions, you know.
right, right. But it's funny when he's indoors, my Sifu, I was just gonna say, he's barefoot. When I go to his house and we work out, the few times that I've been there, we'll go outside because there's not enough room in his training space for more than one person to work out. We have shoes on, right? It's not like it's you change what the I guess the etiquette is in accordance to where you geographically are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the next one, I think that most, but again, not all schools do, is bowing.
Mm-hmm. And that bowing
right?
can take many different shapes.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in my history of schools and bowing is we would, enter the school. Like I'd open the door, I'd walk in, I'd take my shoes off, whatever, and we would bow when we stepped onto the floor, like before stepping on the floor, and then we would bow, and then before and after class, we would bow to, a central location in the school with some photos, and in Japanese Okinawan schools, it would be called a shomen, just kind of where the central location is. And during class you would bow if you saw the sensei or whatever, things like that. But there are other schools that do it differently, but I think most, again not all, have some sort of courtesy bow at some point. What's your experience with that in your schools?
Oh, so much. I mean, I when I first started training with my instructor, we bowed at all of those regular places. Like you bow when you come onto the mat, you bow at the beginning and end of class. To the instructor or the head instructors, however, and then of course you bow to each other. Before you start working with your partner, it's just as a sign of respect and whatnot. The funny story about that, because I'd been with my first instructor for such a long time that there was a generation of students before me, and now there's a generation of students after me. And we went to a conference once where there was a school that did not do a lot of bowing, to the point where like it jokingly annoyed the instructor to have to bow to people. And that instructor was good friends with my teacher. And he told all of us, hey, I want you to make sure that every time you see him, you go up and you wait for him to bow to you individually. Because he was teasing him. He was joking and purposefully annoying his friend. But I've seen now to the point where that joke has gotten lost in translation from my generation to the next. And when my wife Karen came to visit, she's a black belt from another school. All of the students came up to her when her and I were having a conversation, and they stood there waiting for her to acknowledge them, to bow to them individually. And it freaked her out. And she was like, this was just way too much bowing. And I had to explain to her, I was like, they don't know that it was a joke from years before they even did. And now it has turned into the usual etiquette of what happens now in my instructor's school. And so when we did our school, she's like, I just want to go back to this. And that's the way that we do it. And the way that we explain, I'm actually, before I do that, I'm curious, because I know that you've done some instructing and you and things like that. When you're explaining to a new student, bow to your partner, do you explain anything? Or do you just make them bow because that's what we did?
Yeah, that's a good question. So before I will answer your question, but I want to go back a little bit with the because this is how I explain bowing when I'm teaching and I have a new student. They bow when they step on the floor. First off, I explained to everybody that the bow is just a sign of respect. That's all it is. It's not putting anybody on a pedestal. It's not, in some cultures, their religion has them bow, and it has religious significance. I will often let the student know that in some religious areas, bowing has that aspect. That is not what it means here. For us, it is only a show of respect. So at the beginning of class, we all turn and we face the showman, or the central place in the school, with some photos of old, let's face it, mostly old dead people. We are showing
Mm-hmm.
them respect. We are bowing, and this is how I
Mm-hmm.
explain to students that we are bowing to them to basically thank them for what they've given to us, right? And then I, or whoever is teaching, would turn around, and then we do a bow to the instructor, and we are thanking the instructor for what he's about to do, and we're showing respect to him, that we appreciate that you are giving your time to us, the students. And so that's why what I explained to the new students coming in. And then when we bow to each other, whether I'm like, perhaps I'm just a student in the class and I'm going to work with someone and we bow, again, this is how I explain it to students. It is a show of respect. I am thanking you and respecting you and thanking you for taking the time to help me train, and vice versa. I am here to help you train and get better. And so that's how I explain it to students, that it's not it has no religious significance. It's all about just respect.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that we hit a lot of those same parts as well. It's funny because like we talk about bowing onto the floor and off of the floor. Um, I don't really bow onto our floor because I was always taught that it is that sign of respect to another person's house,
Hmm.
as you're entering another man's home or another woman's home. But our dojo is my home, so I don't need to bow into my own home.
Oh,
I've
interesting.
noticed
Sure.
that some of our students do bow in onto the floor, and then some of the newer ones don't, because we just normally say, yeah, like they see us come in, and then they'll get confused because Karen and I won't bow onto the floor, but then some of the other students do bow onto the floor. So we kind of have to walk them through that. So I know my communication in that area probably needs to be a little better. Um, I like what you said about the respect and the acknowledgement. Again, you know, these are things that come from not English speaking cultures. So I know that, like, yes, there is. I like how in Chinese kung fu schools that I've been to, what they do is not translated as bow, it's translated as salute, which is,
Hmm.
again, like I said on the top of this, just a greeting. And I was like, okay, because that's how we use bowing. When I tell them that students are, you're going to bow to your partner, I generally explain it very simply and say, hey, listen, you're about to throw punches and kicks at this person's head. You're going to simulate a fight. How
Hmm.
many people who are aggressive towards you have ever started by bowing to you to mean you hard? I was like, the bow is a symbol to say, hey, this is all in good fun. I really don't
Hmm.
mean you any harm. And then we bow again to close that exchange, so that because I have some kids and some adults who get very distracted. And, there's a lot of groups in our room working on different things all at the same time. And sometimes one of them will take their eyes off of who they're working with and look over here
Yep. Yep.
and get hit. And so I tell them, like, if you are done with working with your partner, that bow is a communication, nonverbal
Hmm.
communication. Be like, okay, we're done working together. Please don't throw any more punches at me, because
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
about to
Yep.
break contact with this and start paying
Hmm.
attention over here. And it's just a
Yep.
good shorthand, I guess is the best way to put it, of helping students be safe with one another. There's a lot of gyms out there that are just about, well, you have to go hard all of the time. Well, yes, but then you have no students.
Yep.
You,
Yep.
you
Yep.
want your students to be safe so that everyone speaks the same language, even if that language isn't verbal. I mean, I've had students and my old instructors who there was one 14-year-old daughter, and then the rest of the kids were in there, were young, not a lot of good English right there. The 14-year-old was the translator for the family, but all of these nonverbal motions
Mm-hmm.
of bowing, starting working together, not working together, actually help these kids who couldn't speak English follow class and understand what was going along. So the etiquette created a universal body language that they were able to follow if they didn't quite understand the linguistic aspects of what were being explained.
Yeah, I like that explanation. It's not one I had thought of, although it absolutely, I can see it and it makes sense. And we would often bow when we're done. If I'm working with someone, we would also often bow when we're done. And again, we describe that to students as, basically a thank you for, letting me train with you. And we see that carry over in a different way into other things. Think of many sparring matches or UFC fights, MMA fights.
Mm-hmm.
They may not necessarily bow at the beginning, but they often will touch gloves. And it's the same thing. It's like, okay, we are now going
Right.
to get into it, right? We're gonna throw hands, and are you ready? Yep, we're ready. Okay, good. And then we go.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are certainly some fighters who, after the match is over, they will bow to the opponent, and
Mm-hmm.
it's the same sort of thing, showing of respect. So I think that's good.
Or even you see a lot of like touching gloves or the hug at the end, right?
Yep,
It's the
exactly.
symbol. Hey, the violence is over. I've had a couple of
Thank
different
you.
instructors of mine tell me this and been like, when you fight for sport is different than fighting for your life. When you fight for sport, it's just business. So you need something to show business has begun.
Yep.
And then when business is over, oh yeah, I'm like buddies with the
Yeah,
guy
no hard
who I was
feelings.
just trying to beat his head in. And so there has to be that thing that we do, be it a bow, be
Yep.
it a tapping of the gloves, be it that hug, to let people know, all right, business is done. We're just two guys again, or two girls
Yep.
again.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And no hard feelings type of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I dig it. All right, here's another etiquette one that, again, I can't stress this enough, listeners or watchers. If you're watching on YouTube, hit those buttons, like and subscribe. It really helps out. Do it. Many schools will have, after class is over, the students are asked or expected to clean the school. In Japanese cultures or Okinawan cultures, it's often called sojido, which translates into roughly mindful cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone first on these other ones. You go first on this one. I suspect you have some thoughts on it.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. We did not have that happen with like in so much of a formal way. When we in my original school, that was the role of first degree black belts, because you didn't have the full grasp of our system until you were third. So you weren't really expected to take on any teaching roles. But first and second degree black belts, your stewardship was of the school was to help with the things. So like I would, I would basically put the mats away, wipe them down so that our instructor could go talk to parents and wouldn't have to do that. And it was less of something that was expected of me as a student and more of a way to practice servant leadership. We don't do that in our school because I have a student who comes in and helps me clean once a week, and this is only because we're smaller. I'm sure when we get bigger, I will need more help. Cleaning is my mindful practice.
Sure.
Cleaning is the thing that I love. I love to get alone in the school, vacuuming, put on some music, put on a book on tape, and just kind of lose myself in the mopping back and forth. And I don't think I'm ready to give that to someone else because I've got very few places in my life where I get to just shut my brain off and just be present. But so tell me about like have you had like your experience with that?
Yeah. So first off, we'll talk about a little bit of the why.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not an expert on this. You're not an expert on any of these. We're just giving conjecture, but I feel confident in saying that this tradition came about when instructors didn't really teach for money. The barter system is what was used for everything, and uh, often classes would take place in the instructor's home or in the on their property, and so hey, thank you so much for teaching me today. Here's a chicken. Here's so much for teaching me. Here's some eggs. Here's so much. Thank you so much for teaching me. Let me clean the floors for you. I think that's where I think that's why we do it in a lot, or at least that's where it came from. Why we do what we do. Now, doing it, I think, has a couple of reasons. One, it can often be a way for a student to help the school out who can't pay tuition.
Mm-hmm.
In a couple of the schools I've trained at, that's what it was. Not every student would do cleaning after class because it was
Mm-hmm.
handled by one or two people because they got a discount on tuition to help out with that, and it helped the instructor because he didn't have to pay someone to
Right.
do cleaning. Um, in another school, everybody took part in cleaning. After class was over, every single person had to do something. Now, granted, we were a small school, so we only had at the most, we maybe would have 5 or 6 people. So it was easy to go, these 3 people, you're on cleaning the floors by hand with a rag on the ground. There's no mop involved. And then these 2 people, you go dust this area, you go dust there. If we had 35 people in class, it would be much harder for everyone to have to do cleaning. But as it was described to us in that school, it was about looking at the literal translation of sojido, as I understand it, is mindful cleaning. So you were expected to clean, which is your way of helping to give back to the school, you taking ownership of the school. The school is partly yours.
Yeah.
Yes, you don't really own a stake in it, but take some pride in your school. You don't want a dirty school. You don't want other parents to come in and see that you have a dirty school. So it's your way of taking ownership of the school, but also it gave you an opportunity to reflect on what you learned that day. What lessons did you go through? It wasn't a time to hang out and chat with your buddy next to you as you're mopping the floor. It was supposed to be quiet so that you could be mindfully thinking about what you did. So that's the experience that I have with it.
That's interesting, and I could see it. I definitely do understand the bartering system thing,
Yep.
and helping students to offset tuition. I When I couldn't pay for dues, I showed up and helped teach all of the beginner classes with my instructor. The student who comes and cleans for us, he has a discount
Mm-hmm.
on one of the classes, some of the classes that he takes, because he's not old enough to work yet. And I was like, okay, so you're not old enough to work for money, come work here. And so we do stuff like that. I have an etiquette one for you that I'm curious about,
Great.
that my wife
All right,
and I
let me
talk
hear
about all the time. Never ask a higher rank to spar with you.
Oh, interesting.
What are your thoughts?
Um, so when you started to ask the question, it didn't go where I thought it was going to go.
Oh, okay.
That is not anything that has ever come up in the schools I've trained in. There's never been a don't ask an upper rank student or instructor to spar with you. In
What about
fact, in
the converse of that? If a higher ranking student asks you to spar, it's rude to say no. Because I've come across those going hand in hand with one another.
So that has never come up in any of the schools I've trained in.
Okay.
So I was involved in one school that did sparring every single night.
Mm-hmm.
Rarely, if there were 8 classes a month, maybe there was one class that you didn't spar. And so in that case, everybody sparred with everybody, regardless of rank, regardless of, it could be your first class, you would be sparring. And it was expected of, if you're not the first day student, the person that is sparring that first day student is going to go super easy and light, but everybody sparred everybody. So there wasn't an issue of, oh, don't ask. It was just expected. Everybody is going to spar everybody. It doesn't matter what rank you are. The one thing that I will say, and this is where you started, where I thought you were going to go, is I have been in a school where if you were working with a student that was of a higher rank than you, even if that rank was one rank higher, you were never allowed to correct them on anything.
Oh yeah. And I think both of those things come from the same mindset.
I think so too, which is why that's where I thought you were going to go. That if I'm working with if I'm working with my teacher, and I absolutely know that he made a mistake, whether it's he went from this move into this move in the form, or he's doing basics and he had them in a set order. They were supposed to be, when you're doing your blocking sequence, you do this one, then this one, then this one. And if I know he skipped one, it is incredibly rude for me to say, "Oh, Sensei, hang on, you missed one. You're supposed to go there." Or, "Sensei, you skipped that move in that form. It's supposed to go to here. Remember?" That was a huge no-no. Instead, what is expected is you have to phrase it as a question, like, "Sensei, I noticed that you went into that move, but I'm not sure that I'm doing it right, because I'm used to doing it into this move, and you did it into this move, and I just want to make sure that I do it right." Well, yeah. I'm politely pointing out that he did it wrong.
Yeah. And I think that has to do with the whole concept of losing face in public and being embarrassed. But I think it is. I know our culture doesn't really deal with, and when I say our culture, I mean American culture, Western culture, doesn't really deal with the losing face in the same sense that Eastern cultures do. But there is this idea of, there's a way to correct someone. I talk to my kids all the time about their tone. And I was like, listen, I don't have a problem with what you asked. I have a problem with how you ask it. I'll give this example, and my son doesn't listen to podcasts, so he'll be okay if I give this as an example. We were driving home from the dojo one day, and my wife was trying to figure out what we wanted for dinner. Because we just passed a McDonald's, and and that smell's coming in through the vents, and it smells oh so good. And he's like, "I'll take some McDonald's," and so was our daughter. And without saying we have McDonald's at home, my wife pretty much said, "We have McDonald's at home." And she was like, I can make you guys burgers and fries when we get home. And our son goes, "I'll take nuggets." And so I almost stopped the car in its place. And I was like, okay. I was like, this is the second time in that day we had this conversation. I was like, it's totally fine. But your wife is not, my wife, your mother, is not a server. You're not at a restaurant. You can't say, like, if I say, "Do you want this?" you can't say, "I'll take something completely different." I was like, there's a way you can ask for that, because it's disrespectful. And again, we know his heart. He doesn't mean anything by it. And one of the things that I said to him in jest, to kind of lighten the mood and make sure that he knew that, like, I wasn't mad at him, I was like, we know what you mean, but one day you might use that wrong tone with someone who doesn't know your heart. And then you're going to have to use the karate that we have been teaching you, because that person's going to take great offense. And going back to it's disrespectful to ask a higher rank to work out with them. I came up in a school like that, but that was because my instructor took in like a lot of Ronin, a lot of wandering people. And this was in like the early 90s. like coming right off of the 80s craze. He had just started and founded his own system of karate, and he had a lot of people, and his instructor had even more, teaching in New York City in the 70s, right? Had a lot of people come and be like, hey, let's move around together. To him, the head of the school, the 5th degree at the time of the school, who just got done teaching, hey, can we move around? You know, in that air of, these students of yours aren't on my level. So let's see what you have. And so we never, now that doesn't mean that during class, of course, you spar whoever's across from you. After class, I would have, sometimes there was no one my rank. There was only people above me. So when I had a higher ranking student come up to me and say, hey, you got some time, you want to move around? I always jumped at the opportunity. My father would always walk around the house yelling in jest, as if to get a point across, that it's about your heart. Like what you do isn't quite as important as the intention behind it. You know, so with our students, because I have some adult students who know that they are weak in sparring, but also don't really have classes because especially this summer, our student body has been so spread out that I've had like 1 or 2 students in class, and I hesitate to let siblings spar with one another for too long because it could go bad. So then the only other people to move around with before and after class are myself and my wife. But they have this idea. I was like, oh, I can't ask the teachers. And I'm like, hey, listen, I'm not the type of person who is going to tell you not to ask me. I love moving around. That's how I learned. Like I learned by getting my head handed to me by people who were better fighters than I am. I don't think that I'm a good fighter. I have had people tell me apparently I'm better than I think I am, but that's because I've spent most of my martial career fighting people who were better than me. I'll give an example. The first ever time I did push hands was with Aaron Hoops. How do you think that went for me? I got thrown around like a rag doll, right? And I loved every minute of it. Why? Because I learned so quickly all of the things that I thought I was doing correctly and how they were incorrect. That's just the way that I learn. I kind of need to have things beat into me a little bit. But if that same student comes up and was like, oh, I pushed you around in this drill that we were doing, I think I could take you in a real fight. They're going to get a different victor. It's about, that's one of those etiquette things that I think you got to understand where it came from. That whole people walking into other people's dojos to challenge their master, right?
Yeah.
We're not there anymore. If someone does do that with me, I'll probably just say, no, thank you. And not even fight them remotely. But if it's one of my students, I'll move around with you. I'm not going to move around with you like a 5th degree black belt. I'm going to move around with you so you learn and I learn. Yeah.
Okay. So here's one. I'm a student of yours, and I come up to you. Hey, Sensei Guarino, can I test next week when the test happens? Now, so there's an etiquette thing that in some schools you do not ask to test.
And I came from that too. So this is one of the things when my wife and I put together our school and our curriculum, we took this etiquette and we practically burned it to the ground. Our students know for a fact, and we say it from day one, I'll ask them, who decides when you're ready to test? It's not me. It's not Sensei. It's you. You decide when you're ready to test. Every test is broken down into 3 sections. There's 4 things. There's a 4th thing that you have to do. And all those things are represented by stripes. So if a student thinks that they know, the information in the curriculum for stripe number 1, they come up to us. Can I test for my stripe? Sure, we do it. once the student has all 4 tests, they are eligible, or all 4 stripes, they are eligible to test. And when we set a testing date, they just have to show up. So we don't, I get that etiquette. I know where it comes from. And I think, again, it comes back from, the heart of the matter is that it would be disrespectful to go up to, and I have some students who they're not meaning to be disrespectful, but they are definitely punching above their weight class when they haven't mastered some foundational techniques and are asking to do some greater things, which is where I think that thought process comes from, is I think I'm ready for the next level, not trusting me. But we've kind of gotten rid of that conversation by saying, okay, well, you only have 1 stripe. You can't test next week when there's a test. Because you're not allowed to earn. They're not allowed to take those stripe tests. They can only test for 1 stripe per class. And only if they really know something well do I let them test for 2 stripes 2 consecutive days. And if, say, like it's a kata, if we went over that kata that day in class, they can't test for their stripe. Because I've already taught them that.
I think, this goes hand in hand with I should have brought it up at the same time, is in a school I was in that had this rule, is that, you were not allowed to ask when you test. You also were not allowed to ask to learn anything new. Like, you could not go to the instructor and say, hey, you know what? I already know, I know these 3 forms, and I'd really like to learn this form. I don't know it yet. Will you teach me that today? Because I'm the only one in class. It's just me. Can we learn on that? Learn that thing today? And that was also very much frowned upon. Very bad etiquette. And I think it comes from a deep-seated root of the instructor thinking that the student thinks they know more than they do. I think there's a little bit of that ego there too, where, the instructor doesn't want you to, like, I'm going to put myself, I'm the instructor. No, you're not allowed to ask for things because I know what you need. You don't know what you need. I know what you need. I think it stems from that. And, you don't get to ask when you test. I will tell you when you're ready to test because I know when you're ready. I think that's where it stems from.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it has, in a lot of things, I think a lot of etiquette things come back to this. This thought of unwavering trust in your instructor. But again, when you have and I know in Okinawa it was like this, I know in China schools were like this, and then when they kind of transitioned over into mainland Japan, that family feel of a dojang or a kun started to become more of a militarized structure where you signed up for this, therefore you must place your trust in your superior officer. And then again, when the Americans came and they were military people anyway, so they even more militarized things like this. And like I coming from working in a background in different religious and para-religious organizations, I used to always say things like, hey, like we shouldn't be doing culty things. Like if what you're doing sounds like something a cult leader would do, maybe we want to find another way. Like I think a lot of the times of the statement "faith like a child." Well, faith like a child implies that the child has trust in a parent, and that trust has been built in a relationship that has always proven to be in the child's best interest. I cannot apply that same type of trust to someone who walked through my door last week. I haven't earned that yet. So I tell my students all the time, none of them have done it yet, but my mom, she trains with my my original instructor in New Jersey, she has a notebook. She's the only one of my students because she also takes Tai Chi with me online once or twice a week. And I've encouraged her to do this. But she's the only one of my students who has a notebook that she carries with her. She brings it onto the floor with her. And she'll ask my instructor sometimes, oh, hold on. And she'll go pick up her notebook and she'll write stuff down, and people see it and are probably like, oh, well, it's harder to, remember many. No, it's because she's being a good student. There are things that I have students who are in their 20s and teens who ask me, and I want them to ask me questions and I will give them an answer. But a lot of times, Andrew, and I've done this, especially with the Bagua Kung Fu that I'm teaching. I've got one student who's taking kind of that focus in their training. They'll ask me a question. I was like, that's a really good question. I can give you an answer. You're not going to understand it because you lack the fundamental basics to understand my answer. So here's what I'm going to say. Take out your notebook, write that question down, and in a couple months, you're going to come back to it so you can understand. And I think that there's a lot of people who are, and this is another etiquette thing that I know we could probably have a whole other podcast about. I know that there have been whole other episodes about cross-training. Mm-hmm. An instructor's unwillingness to let someone train under another person. I think that there is merit in that to a point, but I don't think I think that nowadays a lot of that etiquette comes from fear of being questioned or fear of, well, what I have is given you so far isn't enough.
Yeah. So I think
multiple perspective.
I think we'll put a pin in that because I think we're going to have to come back and do part 2 for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I have
we'll save that. We'll save that for part 2. So if you've made it all the way to this part, listening or watching, get in touch with us and let us know what etiquette things did we not cover. Tell us, because we're gonna have to do another one. That's just the way it is. We're gonna have to do a part 2. So if you're on YouTube, comment. Tell us what etiquette you have to do in your school, and maybe you'd like to know why. We can't tell you definitively why because we're not your instructors. I mean, okay, first off, if we are your instructors and you're going on YouTube asking why you do something, just come and ask us personally. But regardless, comment on YouTube, what should we cover in the next installment of this? Or you can send me an email at andrew@whistlekick.com, and I will make sure it goes on the list, and we'll definitely discuss it. If you are anything new, Victor, before I finish out here?
If you're in the Kansas City metro area, you can come and visit us.
For sure.
We'd love to have you. Do a thing. We just held our second annual free training day Midwest, and that was great. Already have thoughts and plans for free training day Midwest episode 3, as I call it in my head. But yeah, other than that, I'm working on some things, some online programs that hopefully will be rolling out by the end of this calendar year. Awesome. So I'll keep you informed as those things come to light.
That sounds great. And again, whistlekick martialartsradio.com for this episode, transcript, show notes, all of our other episodes. Subscribe to our newsletter, check out our partners, check out Martialytics, and see the cool stuff that they're doing to help you manage and organize your school and students and whatnot. Go to whistlekick.com to find out everything else that we do. Maybe you want to attend a martial art teacher training certification course. You can find that there. All of the stuff that we do, you'll find there. And if you use the code podcast15, you'll save yourself 15% on most everything. And the last thing is a plea to all of you listeners or viewers. If you want to help make this show happen, the best thing you can do is to share it with friends. Tell people about the podcast. Say, hey, here's a great episode that we just listened to on etiquette. Take a listen. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So share this episode. It costs nothing. But if you do have a couple extra bucks in your pocket, patreon.com/whistlekick. Help make this show happen. Help us connect, educate, and entertain traditional martial artists of the world. It would really mean a lot to us. So until next time, train hard,
smile,
and have a great day.